I was watching my buddy's husky last July, and the poor guy was melting. I grabbed a cheap cooling mat from the pet store. Big mistake. Within 2 hours, it leaked this gross gel everywhere. Even my cat Leo just stared at me from the AC vent, totally judging the mess. Figuring out which mats actually cool your dog instead of just making a mess is frustrating. So I tested the top options to find out what actually works. 6. Bedsure Cooling Mat. Well, I really wanted to like this one because it looks great out of the box. It feels like a decent nylon fabric, and the size options are actually generous enough to fit a large Labrador or German Shepherd comfortably. You know, the idea here is simple and sounds great on paper. It uses a pressure-activated gel to absorb your dog's body heat. You just lay it down on the floor, and when they step on it, the cooling is supposed to start right away without any prep work. But let me explain what actually happens in practice. When I laid this out on the hardwood floor, it felt cool to the touch for maybe 20 minutes. After that, it just became a heavy, warm puddle of gel. It trapped the heat instead of dissipating it into the air. I mean, if you live in a mildly warm climate, it might take the edge off for a quick afternoon nap indoors, but for serious summer heat, it just falls flat. Plus, the material, while it looks nice and wipes clean easily, is incredibly slippery. Watching a dog try to stand up quickly on this thing was like watching Bambi on ice. It is a budget option that performs exactly like one. If you have a calm, older dog that does not move much, maybe it works for short bursts. But for the money you spend, you're mostly just buying a temporary cold pack that inevitably turns into a small heater beneath your pet. Number 5. Loobani Dog Cooling Mat. Now this one takes a totally different approach. Instead of heavy gel, it uses what they call arc chill cooling fabric. It is basically a very thin, lightweight blanket designed specifically for pets. I actually appreciated how easy it was to throw in the washing machine. You know, when you're dealing with dirty paws and shedding fur, washability is a huge deal. It folds up to almost nothing, making it super easy to toss in the car for a road trip or a long hike. But here's the catch. Because it's essentially just a thin piece of specialized fabric, there's zero padding. If you put this directly on a hard floor, your dog is just sleeping on a hard floor with a slightly cool sheet over it. It offers absolutely no joint support. And honestly, the cooling effect is barely there. It feels cool when you first press your bare hand to it, sure, but the moment a warm, furry body lays on it for more than 5 minutes, the fabric absorbs the heat and stays warm. You have to constantly shake it out in the air to reset the temperature. Let me be clear, as a travel blanket to throw over a hot car seat, it's perfectly fine. But as a standalone cooling solution for a dog stuck in a hot room, it just doesn't have the sustained temperature drop you really need to keep them safe and comfortable. 4. Rywell Super Absorbent Cooling Mat for Dogs. This is where things actually start to get interesting. Rywell combined a cooling fabric top layer with a super absorbent core, which solves a very specific problem for pet owners. If your dog loves to play in the sprinkler or the pool, this mat is fantastic. I tested this by having a dripping wet golden retriever lay right on it after a swim. The mat soaked up the water incredibly fast, while the top layer stayed cool to the touch. The color-changing feature is also surprisingly helpful. The pattern actually fades when the material gets warm, which tells you exactly when it needs a break to recharge. I mean, it is a small detail, but it takes the guesswork out of knowing if your dog is actually staying cool or just resting on a warm pad. The non-slip bottom is a huge upgrade from the Bedsure mat we looked at earlier. When dogs jump onto it or roll around drying themselves off, the mat stays planted firmly on the floor. It gives them a safe spot to dry off and cool down at the same time without sliding dangerously across the room. It is a highly functional, multi-purpose mat. It might not be the absolute coldest option on this entire list, but the brilliant combination of moisture wicking and surface cooling makes it an excellent choice for active, water-loving dogs. Delifur Dog Cooling Mat. This one really caught me by surprise. It uses a specialized ice silk material that actually feels premium the second you unroll it, and the subtle fishbone pattern looks surprisingly nice sitting in the living room. What I really love about this mat is the breathability. The bottom layer has a unique mesh structure that allows air to circulate entirely underneath the mat. You know, that constant airflow makes a massive difference in preventing the mat from turning into a stagnant heat trap over time. I draped this over a standard dog bed and it worked perfectly. It conforms really nicely to whatever surface you put it on. So if your dog has a favorite orthopedic bed that gets way too hot in July, you just lay this right on top and the problem is instantly solved. It really is that simple. The stitching and overall durability are definitely a step up here. I tried scratching heavily at the surface to simulate a nesting dog, and the fabric held up beautifully without pilling or tearing at the seams. It feels like a high-quality product built to last through multiple brutal summers. Here is what matters most. It delivers consistent, mild cooling without ever requiring refrigeration or running water. It is simply a reliable, extremely well-made fabric mat that actually does exactly what it promises to do right out of the packaging. 2. ARF Pet's Dog Cooling Mat. If you want a heavy-duty traditional gel mat that actually works without making a mess, this is the one. This thing is an absolute tank in the best way possible. The ARF Pet's mat uses a solid gel interior rather than a cheap liquid gel. Let me explain why that is so critically important. Solid gel provides a much more consistent, firm sleeping surface, and the cooling effect lasts significantly longer. We are talking up to 3 hours of continuous deep cooling relief. It is incredibly resilient. The nylon exterior is incredibly thick and highly puncture resistant. I walked all over this thing in heavy boots, folded it repeatedly along the hinges, dropped it, and it never leaked or showed any signs of stress. You can confidently put this inside a crate without worrying about coming home to a toxic mess. Recharging the mat is completely effortless. After a few hours of heavy use, you just leave it alone in a shaded room for 15 minutes and the gel naturally cools itself right back down. No water, no electricity, no freezer required at all. It is literally set it and forget it. Honestly, it is heavy, but that substantial weight keeps it completely flat and secure on the floor. For large breeds that run exceptionally hot, this mat provides genuine, deep cooling relief that you can actually feel working. It is a fantastic, highly reliable tool for summer survival. Lucky Tom Pet Pad Cooling System. Well, calling this a simple mat feels like an insult. This is a legitimate piece of temperature control technology built specifically for your pet. Unlike everything else we have talked about today, this system uses active refrigeration. It circulates chilled water through a heavy-duty PVC mat using a quiet external cooling unit. You literally plug the machine in, add water to the reservoir, and set your exact desired temperature. The performance is completely unmatched by anything else on the market. I set this up during a massive heat wave, and the mat stayed at a crisp, constant temperature all day long. There is no waiting for gel to recharge or fabric to air out. It just stays cold, period. I was initially worried about the noise of the water pump, but it is barely a whisper. It sounds exactly like a very quiet computer fan running in the background. Dogs seem completely unbothered by it, and they quickly figure out that this specific spot in the house is permanently refrigerated just for them. Yes, it requires an outlet and it is certainly an investment, but if you have an older dog, a thick-coated breed, or you live in an area with brutal, unrelenting summers, this is the ultimate solution. It provides active, guaranteed relief that no standard gel or fabric mat can ever compete with. Final thought. That's all for today, folks.